Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Superhumans podcast. Today we have a really special guest. We have Jim Bagnola here, the leadership expert, teaching leadership for more than 40 years already. We are here to deconstruct his superpower. We had some powerful questions, so follow the episode in order to hear more about his journeys, his findings, and his tips for reaching the potential that you can reach. Thank you and enjoy the episode. Don't forget to subscribe and like our channel and give us a feedback at the end so we can be better next time. Welcome, Jim. Welcome in Romania.
Thank you.
We're so happy to have you here. And it was our first thought to have you on this podcast.
Thank you.
Because as we say, Superhumans is a podcast for people reaching experiences, and I think you are one of the richest men I know from this point of view.
Well, after 103 countries, that's how many countries I visited, I get some richness from each country and each people. And Romania has been my most visited country in the last 22 years.
Lucky us.
Really?
If you look at my passport, there's more Romanian stamps than any other country. So I must like it here and I must like the people.
I believe you too.
I do.
Should we get started?
Yes.
I would like to start first of all with asking you, who is Jim Bagnola? Because we know you and we know who you are, but the people who are watching us today may not know you. So I'm just gonna kick this conversation off with that question.
Personally, if I wrote something down, I would say he's a meditator,
A meditator.
he's an exerciser, a
Okay.
reader. These days, listening to more books than I read because I can do everything while I'm listening. Learner, reverser of age.
Reverser of age.
Yeah,
That's a nice way to
I
put
love
it.
to hang with people who are a lot younger because they keep me abreast of what's going on now, music-wise, thought-wise, how the society is changing because of their demands, like the millennials, like you. Demanding.
So that kind of helps you stay in the present. And
Yep.
do you apply that to sort of your work?
To my teaching, because I teach at a university. I'm a corporate educator, so I teach at corporations, and in a few years 80% of the workplace will be millennials.
Yeah,
And
that's
so if
true.
it's not millennial friendly, you may as well let it go because they're not going to use it. They're not going to do it. And when they don't want to do something, they don't.
And how do you think the world could get ready for this change? Because I know that you've been talking about this for some years already, but there's still a challenge in the workplace to accommodate different generations and so on. How do you think we can actually get to know each other better and actually listen to each other and truly collaborate?
I think each organization needs to talk to their people because not all millennials are the same. And so some millennials live stereotypes that are given and some don't at all. People ask me about millennials and I say, well, I'm a member of a team in Romania and none of the stereotypes apply. So, some stereotypes are they're lazy. I don't know any lazy people at HPDI. And if they were, they're gone. They didn't make it. If someone says, they're entitled, not in Romania, people don't, most people do not feel entitled. They are hardworking people. So there are stereotypes and then there's scientific research.
I think sort of most people confuse entitlement with actually speaking your mind. So I think that's sort of a concept that has just started in Romania. And I think millennials are the ones who did it first. So naturally that sort of entitlement came to us. But
I agree with that, because what really they're doing, you say speaking their mind, but they're honest, and to them it's not disrespectful.
Yeah.
Regardless of what title the person has or what their age is or where, it doesn't matter. It's to a millennial, this is the way I see it. I don't think it's disrespectful. I know a Vietnamese student came up to me who was flunking my course at college. And I said, "What's the problem? Because you know you're flunking." She said, "I'm bored. You're boring." And I went, "Well, thank goodness 90% of my class doesn't think that, because they're passing. You're failing. So what should I do?" She said, "More videos, more games." I said, "Okay." So the next day I created this game, and nobody could accomplish what I asked them to do with this game. The next day I said, "In the morning we're going to do the game again." This, I shouldn't call her a girl, woman, she might have been 24, 25, grad student. She created, because these are code writers, she created a code that solved the problem.
Oh, that's very smart.
And from then on, she was passing because she enjoyed it. We did more games, and she was the hero. We had 300 students. None of them got it but her. And she wrote a code to figure it out.
Now, I cannot help but ask you, sort of what got you into this position? What made you become who you are in terms of your profession?
I think I love learning. If you don't like learning, you better not teach, because it's never ending. If you think it ends, you will be irrelevant. So I always ask Petru to tell me, you got to tell me when I'm irrelevant, and then I can retire. Until then, I'm learning. And learners like to teach what they learn because they continue learning it as they teach. So I think that's, for me, the curiosity of what else is around the corner. What other great idea can I use to help somebody unfold their potential? My two masters, my undergraduate degree is in political science, which at that time was leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have a graduate MA master's degree in applied psychology, and then one in consciousness and human potential. So I'm interested in potential. I'm interested in, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at Maslow's top is self-actualization.
Yes.
And in college, I asked the professor, "Dr. Popplestone, how do I get that top thing? What is that?" And he said, only 2% of the population don't bother, because only people like Einstein and named a few other people get that. And Jim, you're not an Einstein. And now I'm doing a meditation, and that meditation is 3 times more powerful than any other self-development technique to allow for self-actualization, which can be measured.
Was that sort of the turning point? Did that argument made you rethink what you were doing?
I love when people say you can't do something.
Okay.
So I have flat feet, and some foot doctor told me, your brothers are athletes, your father and your uncles are great athletes, but you can't be an athlete with those flat feet. I have no arch.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I ran a 10.5 second 100-yard dash. Now it's 100 meters dash, just because he said that. Okay. And I got a scholarship in college to play baseball just for him. Dr. Muckley. I even remember these people. If you tell me I can't, or you won't, or you, then I love that competition for myself. Not for them, for me.
Proving yourself you can do it.
Yeah. So I love it if somebody says, you can't do that. I can't.
It sort of activates something in your brain.
Exactly. I really, I want to see if I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
So curiosity to learn is and also to reach human potential. I think we're always a project, that's in motion and never ends. But the journey is enjoyable. Of what can I learn new that just some simple thing that can make it easier for people to get along in the workplace or be more productive in the workplace or just in their relationships, and that I can become better at all those things.
That was actually my next question. It was regarding like how do you get the fuel, the energy to do all the things that you're doing for such a long time? I know that you're teaching for probably more than 30 years already. You've been to so many countries and so on. You saw so many changes around you. What keeps you going?
When people sometimes ask, what are your values?
Mm-hmm.
I say, these are the most valuable qualities in your life. What's most valuable to you? And in my class, it could be about stress management, health management. And I'd say, give me your top 5. And 90% of the class won't say health.
Really?
90%. And I say, by the end of this class, I want you to move health up into your top 3 because you can't enjoy anything. You can't enjoy going to church because a lot of people put God. Well, you can't even enjoy going to church if you're not healthy. You can't enjoy your family. Some people put family.
I just think in Romanian culture that's a bit more prominent. I mean, health for us is usually a saying from when we're young until we get old. We always say all we want is health. Because I think that's the reason we think of health as something that allows us to do what we love.
I think today Romania has evolved. When I first got here, I was shocked that, people weren't exercising in the street because, I knew Romanians as great gymnasts.
Yes.
Great, the best in the world. And I got here and everybody was smoking. Everybody was smoking. We'd be in a restaurant. I had to come here with a little electronic thing to clean the air, and I hung it around my neck. Because we'd go to restaurants and people are just smoking. And the last airline to stop smoking was Tarom.
Wow.
Tarom.
Yes, I
even
that.
wrote a chapter in my book about it.
I know. I actually read your book quite recently.
So then you read something about me going into the cockpit.
Yes.
Yeah.
With the pilot.
That's right.
Yes.
And I saw the Aurora Borealis. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was on Tarom.
Beautiful.
They were my client, and they flew me in business class. And I closed my eyes when we first got on, and then I heard all these clicks. And then I look around business class, and I said, excuse me, I think I'm in smoking area. And the flight attendant said, this whole plane is a smoking plane. I'm going to die.
Well, yeah, Romanian did some steps in this
but now,
healthy way of...
much better. Not much better, and people are working out more here, and, much better now than in the U.S.
Okay, so health will be one of your
on top.
Energy...
On the top.
On the top.
Yeah,
okay.
Take care of the health. Sleep, eating well, drinking enough water, for the day.
And what else?
Sleep is really key. Meditation.
Okay.
Because meditation allows transcendental meditation, which I've done for 50 years. Even though I don't look 50.
Not at all. No.
it gives you a deeper state of rest than deep sleep. So the only thing that releases stress, which ages us, is rest. So some stresses are deep, so deep that sleep does not touch it. Mm-hmm. In fact, a lot of people will go to bed tired and they get up tired.
Yes, I know that.
Because they haven't really slept well or deep enough. So if you add 20 minutes twice a day of meditation, it will get rid of the stress that's causing us not to be able to sleep deeply. Mm-hmm. Also, the stress that causes aging is removed. You don't accumulate. You get rid of it. First thing in the morning, you get rid of anything that wasn't dissolved during the night sleep. And then at the end of the day, you get rid of what you picked up during the day before you have dinner and enjoy the evening. Mm-hmm. Most people don't enjoy their evening. They make it through their evening after being exhausted.
They go to bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crawl to bed after binging on some series.
I think the hardest thing with meditation is consistency, probably as in other parts in our lives. Do you have any advices for sticking to meditation?
You know, this form is there are three kinds of meditation. One is concentration, focused attention. The second kind is open monitoring, and that comes from something called mindfulness. The first one, there's something called anything that fits into the category of focused attention is concentration. Mm-hmm. Those are hard to do. Transcendental meditation is called automatic self-transcending, which is effortless, easy. So it would be like saying, I think I'll skip a shower this morning. It's just too hard. Showering is enjoyable, feel great afterwards. So is meditation. So it's not, if you prioritize it, understanding what good it gives you, then it's an enjoyable experience. Why would I skip an enjoyable experience?
Yeah, that's true.
So it's not really even discipline. It's just setting aside the time. This is the time I do this. This is when I'll do that.
Prioritizing?
Yeah. And so that's, one of my priorities since I've done it for so long and I see the benefit. I'm not going to miss it.
How did you start it to meditate?
I read about the human potential and that anyone could start from any level of consciousness and still reach a state of, in the East called enlightenment, in the West called self-actualization or self-realization in the East. So when I read that, it was a meta-analysis, which takes into consideration, in this one, 42 different studies. 42 different kinds of self-development tools, and then compared to Transcendental Meditation, this was 3 times more effective. So they can measure that using what they call the POI, the Personal Orientation Inventory. And there are other ways to measure it, like personality. However, that one is the most used, and it's 3 times more effective. So I thought, that's for me. Maslow said 2% of the population. This one said anyone can reach their full potential. So me not being an Einstein, I thought this one's for me.
And since you've started it, did you notice any changes?
I'm more intelligent, have more clarity of mind at my age, which is 73, than I did when I was 23.
That's something.
Yeah.
Clarity, strength of mind and clear analyzing and focus of attention.
Do you think that's one of the reasons why you say you sort of engage with millennials and
Yes.
want to be in the present?
Correct.
You think that helps?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. And if you meditate for 5 years regularly, your biological age reverses by 12 years minimum.
I think everyone is gonna close the podcast and then go and meditate.
Just start now. If you feel that you should start now, just do it.
My age, there's a calendar age, of course, that's your age by year. Then there's a psychological age, how old you think you are. And then there's a biological age, how old you really are. There's even a place you can go online, it's called realage.com, that can give you as close as you can without some physiological measurements. My age is 42. At 73.
Congrats.
Yeah. So, and it's just science, and it's and anyone can do it. It's not I'm special in any way. I've done it for that long of time, where I keep reversing the biological age, how old you really are.
You said you work with executive teams. Do you try and bring that into the work you're doing with them?
Not up front, because it's a spiritual practice, meaning it's not material. It's something I can't see, feel, touch. I can only see the benefit after doing it. So once I have, depending on their need as a team, once I have that need met, most teams will say, what else can we learn? What else can we do? And that's when that comes in. I'll say, well, if you want to know what I do personally and what I can recommend, then I recommend this. Because just for an example, at the university I teach at, that part of the curriculum is the students learn to meditate first. And they meditate 3 times during the day. Once before they come to class, once before lunch, and once at the end of the class. And I have a unique job at this university, because this university is not crazy like the university I went to.
Define crazy.
6 courses for the quarter or semester, and then you have a finals week with 6 tests. It's crazy. It's stupid. In this university, they take 1 subject at a time, 1 exam at a time.
That's very interesting.
So we're in class 4 or 5 hours a day for 2 weeks or 1 month, and that's takes care of the whole quarter. And they have 1 test for finals week per course. So you can take 12 courses, or if they're 2-week courses, I teach 2-week courses because I want to do things with HPDI. I want to work. I want to run my own business. So I do 2-week courses. And that's the only course they take in my class, just my class. And then the next 2 weeks, they take another class.
That takes off the pressure.
Yes. And
for sure.
We're talking changing capacity, which means most universities stuff information and ideas into your head without expanding it. In 2 years of meditating during this time, the student's IQ changes 40 to 60 to 80 points. The average is I stay the same. In most universities, which were, we're measuring, they just stay the same. Not in this one. The capacity changes. So you actually learn facts, knowledge, information, but you increase your capacity while you're doing that. So it's called the intelligence growth rate. So it's the only university I know in the world where you get smarter as you're there. Not just you get more facts stuffed into your brain without it expanding its capacity. So for me, I feel more intelligent than I did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. because it keeps growing. And just the release of stress. Stress is causing a lot of problems with all of us. And removing stress increases capacity. Removing stress increases human potential. Removing stress gives us better relationships. Stress ruins relationships. People are both fatigued and tired and not listening to each other. It doesn't work.
You actually saw so many generations and so on. Do you think that people are today the most stressed ever? Is
No.
this the maximum
I don't think
level
so.
of stress and burnout and so on?
The Z generation and the millennials are demanding that they have life-work balance. Demanding. It's not in our generation, it was just put up with it.
It's interesting that you said life-work balance. So we usually hear work-life balance. And I love that you said life-work balance.
Yeah. I think, especially millennials, there isn't the kind of research on the Z. That means after around 2000. People born after 2000. Were you born after 2000?
No.
Yeah, so you fit into the millennial.
Yes.
And so not enough research has been done on Z yet. However, with millennials, they want experience, not things so much. Yes, money is important. You have to buy food, you have to pay rent, but that's not number one priority. Number one priority is, I want money to experience life.
And to grow.
To grow, experience life, have an interesting job, rather than I want to buy a house and I'm going to get married as soon as possible, not counting you. And whoever's watching, she's getting married soon.
Yes, thank you. Now it's official. Thank you, Jim, for...
I just wanted to make sure people knew. Send gifts. What's the address?
No, it's okay. It's fine. It's interesting that you're saying this, and I just had another question in mind, because you're talking about this new way of teaching students at the university that you're today working in. But I can imagine that when you were a student, and as you said at the beginning, the situation was pretty differently.
Yes.
But you also mentioned curiosity as one of your key drivers into following this passion. Do you think that the educational environment, let's say, that you had as a child and as a teenager helped you to grow this curiosity, or it was more like a not so useful task, as I feel it's for us in Romania? That's why I'm putting this question. I feel that for us in school, curiosity is not it's not an important skill to have.
For me, for example, I got really curious about education, more like passionate, because I didn't think in Romania we had the level of education that I wanted. So I went on and searched for it. I searched.
Where'd you go again?
I went in England. But yeah, I think that was one first step for me. And it'd be interesting to see which one was for you.
I think I caught fire through travel.
Travel.
Yeah. Because so many cultures, so many different kinds of people, and so many ways of learning and understanding each other, and foods they ate and customs they had. I just started, I think it was, 75. I graduated in 1971 during the Ice Age.
It's fine.
And then I worked at the university for 3 years.
Okay.
But then I went to become a teacher of meditation in Europe at the end of those 3 years. I saved up my money and I thought, I'm going to go get some different kind of education.
So that was sort of your driver.
Yeah. And after I went there, this international university, same one I teach at now, they would rent hotels in off-season places. So they would go in the summertime to ski resorts like Avoriaz, France. I went for a quarter in Avoriaz, France in the summer where they ski. So nobody's in the hotel. So we set up classrooms in the hotel. We sleep there, we eat there, we do everything, and then we can we can travel in the area on the weekends. So I went there, went to Switzerland, I went to Italy, to graduate, to get this graduate degree. And I think that's when it turned on, when I was really became, excited about learning these different things about life.
And aware, I think.
Yeah, very aware. And knowing that I could actually fall in love with any people anywhere. I never found a people or a really even a person that I didn't really love or like. And then I realized, wow, so differences really make things interesting, not the same. Sameness is boring. Differences make life interesting for me. Normally people get nervous about differences because you're not like me. So there's a nervous for me is, oh, you're not like me.
Yeah.
How interesting.
Exactly. That's where growth happens. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so how do you think? And I'm not put off by people who don't think like me. They don't have to think like me. Think like you. And so I really was bored with college. I mean, it didn't excite me, and not that it was its fault. It was probably my fault. But when I grew up, those were days of people experimenting with marijuana, with I don't know what you call it now, is weed, but whatever it was, people were experimenting with everything at my age, at my time, because things were boring. They were not
conventional.
Very conventional, and some professors ignited that passion in me. Some professors, but most not. They were kind of blah. Yeah. But some did in the area that I had chosen in leadership. And it was called political science, and it was a lot more than political science then. But
why did you choose leadership?
I took the in those days there were no computers, so nothing online. I had a catalog, and each topic or subject had class and then a description of the class. So if I wanted to major in mathematics, here are all those, and I would read them and go, oh my God, turn the page.
So that was when you had to choose a university, right?
Yeah. And so I read them all. I got all these catalogs. I read this and that. And it was like trial and error, and that's the only one left. This is the only thing that I'm interested in. At that point.
I can relate to that.
Did you do that? Something like that? Yeah. And then, added to that was anything international was, people would say, I'm going to travel when I retire. And I would, when you retire, you'll be dead. I'm going to travel on vacation. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to get a profession where I travel.
You make your work, your vacation.
Yes. And you know what? My clients are going to pay for the flight.
I think that's the dream.
Exactly.
And so that's what I did. And so what I learned by that is be careful what you ask for, because I was jet lagged for 30 years, like I am right now. Jet lag is, I don't know, it's the toughest thing I have to deal with in my job. Because my body is sensitive to time. So for instance, when I fly to Bucharest, it's 8 hours ahead. So at 8 o'clock in the morning, that when some people want you to start lecturing, it's 12 o'clock at night, and my body's going, what? What? Speak to a group of people? You're going to be dreaming
That's
your
not
way
gonna
through
happen.
this. And my breath is different for a week. It's different. If I'm speaking, I can notice, wow, I have sleep breath. Real soft and,
Yeah, I understand.
because my body's still sleeping at that time.
How was your first experience? I mean, when you first started?
When you had your first international training?
Well, it was my first international experience was going to school, going to that university. And where did we go first? Livigno, Italy. It was a ski resort in the summer. So these hotels are empty unless there's hiking or something. And I just remember the first 3 days, I was falling asleep in class. And so that was my first experience of jet lag. I didn't know what that was. Most people who haven't been in another country or gone far enough, they don't know what I mean by jet lag. But then when they have it, they give me a call and say, oh my God, now I know what you're talking about.
But you're somehow managing to go through this and do your job no matter what.
As soon as I'm done, I want to lay down and sleep. The energy of the people now that I present makes it possible. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to do it. But the energy that is exchanged with the people keeps me alert and alive at that time. Now I also fly in and wait for 2 to 3 days before I start to try to recover.
That's a good idea.
To try to realign with the circadian rhythm. So a lot of you going into the sun right away, exercising right away, really trying to get into the flow of the time helps.
And how was the first experience, the first international experience as a trainer? Like when you had a client to deliver to, when things were a bit different?
Let me think. That was a long time. Let me think. Where did I go first? I went to one of my first keynotes was in Berlin.
Okay.
And this was 1989, before you were born, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, before you were born. Before you were born. Just checking with everybody. See who the oldest person is here. I was the last speaker before the wall came down.
Wow.
So in my room were generals from England, France, U.S., and Russia. They occupied Germany. Yeah. They occupied Berlin, they occupied Germany, and that was the last day that they were going to be together. And after that, they gave this place where I spoke, it was called Clay Ali. It was a base, an American base. They gave it that land and the whole base back to the Germans, and everybody left. And I remember they gave me a piece of the wall that came down, and you weren't even born, so you wouldn't remember that this wall kept the East Germans there, and it was a terrible experience. East Germany was a mess, and West Germany was modern. When the wall came down, the East Germans were like in heaven. They were just running across, and West Germans loved it too because a lot of their family was on the other side. And they used to shoot people. trying to get out of the East German sector into the West German sector. Anyway, I just remember that was like my first experience, and I really was sweating because I'm speaking to all these generals and I'm 30 some years old, you know.
What did you choose? What was the topic?
Leadership.
Leadership.
Yeah, and why some of the funny stories about in the early days when the wall was built and communism was in force, what they used to argue about, because, you know, these four elements were in this one city. And now today, the reason why we're ending all this is because you're complaining about your neighbor's dog, not about some secret operation, intelligence operation that was going on under your nose by your house.
I'm just curious, wasn't it a bit uncommon to speak about leadership in that time? I always imagined management to be the word in that period of time rather than leadership.
That's a good question. Not in the military. I had a lot of military clients. They spoke about leadership. In fact, in my approach to leadership and I don't even know now how many clients I've had. You've seen some of the letters. I think I had 100
yes,
letters.
Hundreds.
Yeah, we just got them.
Yeah. But the military knew what leadership really meant. They were the best leaders I've ever dealt with, the military. And now we see it in Ukraine. You know, they're living up to what I would consider a strong leader. And so in business, Peter Drucker came out. He's the father of all leadership and management. Austrian, who moved to the U.S. and started lecturing there. But I think my book is from 1969.
I think that's the first book we've started with in university.
Is that right? The Effective Executive.
I think so.
It's called. Everything in there is still taught by everybody else today. So I think Peter Drucker started the conversation about leadership in that time, and he included this woman who's a hero of mine, who still does what I do. Trying to think of her name right now, but Peter Drucker called her the best leader in America. She was leading the Girl Scouts at that time. And she today is 106 years old. If you look her up, and she still travels and speaks.
Still active.
106. Gosh, why can't I think of her name? I can see her.
If you can remember it after all, we can just write it in the description for people to search her.
Yeah, good. But her name's just not popping up right now. But I was introduced to her by Ovidiu Bujaran, who introduced me to Romania more than 22 years ago. He was in ISIC. And I was speaking at their conference in Atlanta, and there was a guy just standing over there waiting with his arms folded while all these line of people were students were talking to me. And when they finished, he came up, "Hello, I want you to come to my country." And what country is that? Romania. Because we're lost right now. I'm telling you, we're lost. You know, it's just a few years after communism fell in the 90s. And
was that around the time you met Petru as well?
I'm sorry?
Was that around the time you met Petru as well? A bit later
2
on.
years later, I met Petru because now Ovidiu, who started to take the lead, wanted to go to Harvard. And I told him that it cost $59,000 per year at that time. Probably a lot more now, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I said, I want you to go online after you get accepted and find money. He wanted to borrow it from me. And I said, don't want you to have this kind of debt, because it was a master's program. He had done his undergraduate degree. And in a week, he found one. He found a scholarship online from the World Bank offered by Japan.
Wow.
And that itself was a leadership event to me. He went, found it, and didn't have to pay $120,000 back to me or anyone. He found the scholarship. Fantastic. Then he went to MIT and borrowed the money.
It's actually the second or third example that you give us regarding you guiding someone to a better decision, let's say. So I just want to go back a bit to those superpowers that we were asking you about, because I noted in my mind already meditation, health as a number one priority, but I still feel that there are still some missing pieces that make you the superhero that you are today.
I think that two things are important. One is the goal line, and one is the soul line.
Okay.
And I have written up something on how I coach, and I coach using these elements. The goal line is material, all the things I want to achieve here, now, money-wise, relationship-wise, whatever. It's material. The soul line is, what kind of person do I become while I'm doing this? What kind of character am I building? Because you can't take any of the goal line materials with you when you change your address from this planet to some other planet or place. What you take with you is soul, consciousness, character. What did you build here? You just can't say, well, I was a multi-millionaire. Do I get a better place in heaven for that reason? Nope. No, you don't. Or you can say, I was kind to everybody I met. That counts. That counts to character. I had a BMW. We don't care. Can't bring that. Sorry. What else did you have? Well, I was compassionate. You can bring that. It's because those are spiritual. Spiritual means non-material. Right? So while we're here, we should live 200% of life.
Okay. That's some pressure.
200% of life means 100% material and 100% spiritual. And it's the reason for being. And I think, you're too young to think of changing addresses.
For sure.
However, sooner or later we have to change addresses. It's part of life. So, and I only use that because one of my promoters, she used to say, I want you to come back, and she was 97 years old. And I used to be in her speaker's bureau. And so she would get me, like Petru does, or you will do for me, get me clients, right? And so she wanted to celebrate her 100th birthday. And she said, you have to promise me, she was in Austin, Texas. I'm in Iowa, far away from her, that you will come and celebrate my 100th birthday before I change addresses. And I thought, that's great, change addresses. And she passed away that year, but she was working at 97 years of age, still working. still getting, she was a speaker herself.
That's such an accomplishment, but I wouldn't say she was working.
No, you're right.
I think
she loved it.
Just loved it. Yeah.
She loved it. She coached other speakers. She was a speaker herself. She was a secretary in some company, and she used to watch them train, and one day the trainer couldn't show up, and she said, I can teach this course. And the boss went, wow. You're a secretary. And she quit, became a trainer, and then a speaker, and then created her speakers bureau with, representing all these other speakers. So anyway, you can take it with you. There are certain things you can take with you, and certain things, they're not going. And character is going. It's consciousness. It's spirituality is just non-material. Whatever you can think of that's non-material, all your values, all the things that you develop in yourself. I consider if you can play an instrument, because if Mozart could play an instrument at, 5 or 6 or 7 years of age, and write, music, he did it before. So he brought it with him. Spiritual practice.
Do you think you also had this leadership identity inside of you since you were a kid as well? Like, do you think
Absolutely.
It was something born somehow?
Absolutely natural by nature and nurtured. It was, if I teach leadership, I say, I'll ask you because you're brand new. Is there such a thing as a natural born leader?
I believe so.
So that's true only if you take into consideration twins, triplets, and quadruplets, because somebody has to follow you out. A leader cannot lead without a follower. Nobody's born with a follower. You might be born with some natural capability that you're going to have to develop along the way to get people to follow you, but you're not born with followers. So the first law of leadership is you need a follower. If nobody's following, you're not leading. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So natural born leader is one who looks like they were born with these skills, when in fact they weren't. They were born with maybe the inclination, maybe the seeds, but you have to develop those. I know some mother once said, I don't believe that. My son is 6 years old. You should see him on the playground with the kids. He's bossing people around and telling them what to do and organizing things. And I said, well, he could keep that same skill, or he could develop it, and by the time he's 21, he has a much better skill to get people to follow him, or he could keep the same skill he has right now. Which would you like him to do? Oh, well, maybe I think he should learn. Yeah, get better at it? Yeah. So leading is not a gift. Leading is a skill that have to be practiced. It's something that has to be practiced, right?
Yes.
It's not given to us. Nothing's given to us. Followers don't just follow. We have to earn them. So.
And how do you think we, for example, can be good leaders?
Well, I have something called READS, READS. It's a tool. The R is for relationship. We build relationship much before we need anyone to follow us with that person. Relationship means, how do I relate to them? What do I have that they need and I give? Because relationship means two people give and two people get. If only one person is giving, the other person is drained. Right? I mean, the person who's giving all the time and giving all the time is drained. The other is not drained, but it's going to lose that person fairly shortly. So two people, if they're relating, have to give. So relationship is first. E is about expectation. So what are your expectations? What are mine? Mm-hmm. Let's be clear what our expectations are, because if we don't clear that up, then we assume. That's A. Mm-hmm. We make assumptions. Assumptions ruin everything.
We all know they're not good.
Right, they're no good. 50% of them could be a valid assumption, but most of the time we make invalid assumptions because we don't clarify expectations, right? The D is about where are we going? What's the destination? What's the objective? How do I know when we get there? And the S is about self-awareness, meaning if I don't get feedback and accept feedback from other people, especially uncomfortable feedback, I can never grow. So just thinking about how I might influence somebody with those 5 things and how I might be influenced by them. So we position ourselves to be influenced and to influence people. And that gives us more of the skill of influencing somebody to follow us when it's time, when it's appropriate. Because it's not always appropriate to lead. Sometimes, and I can remember this Ukrainian story, training that I gave, and people were shocked. You mean I have to be as good a follower as I am a leader? And I said, you can't even be a leader without being a good follower. Because if you don't follow somebody at the appropriate time, why would they follow you at the appropriate time?
So it's reciprocity.
Yes,
somehow.
There's reciprocity. Of those 5 things, they have to do them, I have to do them. It's not, so I call it the 50-50 rule. It's 50% your responsibility, 50% mine. And not anyone's full responsibility.
I'm curious, in your experience so far, did there ever come a time when, for example, you had to work with a team and they had a very difficult issue within the team and you couldn't solve it? Or
Yes. Yeah. Right here in Romania. I had, Petru and I had an insurance company. They merged, 3 companies merged into one.
Wow.
French company bought them, and there were 2 Romanian, I think, companies, and they merged, and right off the bat, they were arguing about smoking in their office. And I said, okay, let's talk about that. No, we don't want to talk about it. Half of the team. The half of the team that didn't want to smoke in their office, let's talk about it. But they were to me combining 3 cultures, which was very difficult.
Having one culture is difficult.
Is absolutely difficult. So when they combine these 3 cultures, I would be interested to see what they are doing today, how they get along, and because these were 10 executives and they were a mixture from all 3 companies. I really enjoyed the president of the 3 companies, and he had taken him. They were all in the red, and they got in the black, but the chief financial officer said, "Yeah, but we're barely in the black. We need to make a profit. We're barely making it." So in the end, I'm not sure that I helped them. I might have helped some individuals on the team, but I didn't help the team
achieve its best.
Yes, it's kind of form into one culture. I thought it was not possible. It was too divergent. 3 cultures were like pulling each other like this way.
Yes.
The president was good. I hope he did well. I don't think I did well with them.
But what do you think it was your biggest challenge in all those years? Regarding your profession, of course.
Wow, biggest challenge. I think the biggest challenge for any person in our profession is stage fright. People are born with stage fright. Nobody's born a perfect speaker.
Yeah.
You know, I was born to be perfect. No, never.
Trial and error.
Yeah, you have to get over stage fright. So I can remember my first lecture. I graduated from the university. I went in to get a recommendation from the guy who gave me a scholarship to go to school there, to get a recommendation for law school. And he said, well, why don't you go to law school here? Why should I go here? He said, because if I give you a job, if I hire you, you can go to law school for free because you're a part of the faculty, the administrative faculty. Oh, wow. Okay. I took the job and I was assistant director of financial aids. The first 2 weeks, he told me, look, you know what one of your jobs is? What? You're going to go talk to parents about getting accepted into the university, get their kids accepted into this university and how they get financial aid. Me? Yeah, you. You have 2 weeks to learn. So in 2 weeks, I'm talking to everybody on, how do we admissions and financial aid and what is, what's available and, what are the pitfalls of getting, accepted into this university.
Yeah.
Then my first night, it was called Parents' Night at these high schools. And I go there, I open the door, and there were 150 or 200 people in there. I closed the door,
And leave.
I went back to my car, and I sweat. My God, I have to talk to all these people? These are adults. I'm like a kid. I was 22 or something.
Yeah.
I got it. So I finally, I got to go in there and do this. So after 15 minutes, okay.
No more sweat left in the body.
Yeah. I went back in, my knees were shaking. I started, and after 15 minutes, they started raising their hands. And I'm answering their questions. And I realize, wait a minute, I know more than all these people know about this. I've studied it for 2 weeks. They've never studied it. They don't know. And I came a little bit more confident. By the end of the talk, I was confident. Next time, I was still nervous at the beginning, but it stayed less of the time and less of the time. Later on, I found 94% of the population, when they ask, what are the top 10 stressors in your life? The number 1 was speaking in public. Number 6 was dying. People would rather die than speak in public. So you were feeling nervous beforehand.
A bit, yes.
Yeah. I was feeling nothing but joy. When I started, I would feel exactly what you felt, nervous. And so now my phrase is preparation equals confidence. So in this situation, I prepared all my life for this conversation. So I have no stress, zero.
Yeah.
If I was
Must
interviewing,
be nice.
I would feel stress because I haven't prepared today for interviewing. So that was the biggest thing, getting over stage fright. Everybody has it. One of your friends, who's an executive in your company, when he first spoke and tried to introduce me, nothing was coming out of his mouth. And then he gradually could speak. But he was very quiet. I would like to introduce Jim. He's coming out now. And I have to go because I just can't handle this. But everybody has stage fright. Everybody has to get over it.
Is it a matter of just doing it then?
Preparation and practice and doing. Preparation, practice, doing. Preparation, practice, doing.
Golden 3.
And the more you do it, the less stressed you are. Last month or 2 months ago, I spoke to 15,000 people online.
15,000.
15,000. Was I nervous? Nope. In person, the most I've spoken to are 5,000. And they were psychiatrists in Colombia. And I was standing there, I was thinking, they're analyzing me and this is fun. I think I'll be a little strange and see if they can analyze me while I'm speaking. But after a while now, I realize I can only speak to one person at a time. You can't see everybody. You can only see one. So it's a conversation with you, and everybody else is eavesdropping. They're listening in to our conversation. So once you get that, you're only speaking to one person. I don't care if there are 5,000. I can't see 5,000 people. Even on the computer, you can only see so many people. All I saw is the number. And then, in the gallery view, you can see so many people.
I think this is a better advice than imagining everyone is naked in the room.
Well, it just depends who's in the room.
Regarding teaching, if we would be in a world where everyone knows everything, what would you teach?
In a world where everyone knew everything?
Yes.
You should have started with this one.
I would say something that a lot of people don't know because it's such a delicate balance of confidence, competence, and humility. They could know everything, but not this.
What do you think that is?
Delicate. To be confident and humble at the same time. And I've been thinking about this for the last few days because I'm going to be giving a talk tomorrow evening. And I'm going to start with equality. That we're all equal. I'm not above you, and I'm not below you.
We're just on different journeys.
I'm with, that's right.
That's a bad news for the ego seekers.
That's correct. That argument's going on all the time between the ego and the self. The higher self is using the cortex, which analyzes, thinks, wants to get better, wants to improve, wants to go outside the comfort zone. And the ego is using the amygdala. The amygdala feels always threatened.
And it's very
I want to be
emotional.
better. Yes. I want to be better. I want to be richer. I want to dress better. I want to look better. I want to do this. I just want to be better. I'm competing with everybody. Or I'm just working with everybody. And I'm not above them. I'm not below them. I'm equal to them. I think this is one of the hardest lessons in the world. So if everybody knew everything, I'd say, there's one thing you probably don't know. And it's an experience which, if we talk about racism, hatred, and all the things that are negative in the world, it's because somebody thinks they're better than you are, and believes it. And what they haven't considered is, how do you feel about yourself towards other people? Are you equal to everybody? Are you better than some people? Are you below some people? Why do you think you're below them?
I think it's easy to learn about it, but not so easy to apply it in real life.
Everything's easy to learn and hard to apply.
Yeah.
There's a gap between knowing and doing. And so the knowing and doing gap is really the challenge for everybody. But first you have to know. You have to have an intellectual understanding before you can have the experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know intellectually, now I have to practice.
Yeah.
And the resistance comes from what is called the lizard brain, the amygdala. The amygdala doesn't want you to go outside the comfort zone. It's very safe in the comfort zone. Why should you learn something else? You may fail. That's the ego is speaking. And you have to kind of get used to who's talking to you in this inner world. Even the American Indians had a lesson about this. They said we're born with two wolves. One is a good wolf.
Which one do you feed?
Which one's it's in my book.
Yeah.
Because I learned that from the American Indian. I learned it from an actual Indian. He told the story, and I wrote the story. But it's who you going to feed is right. So where do you put your attention? Where do you where do you allow that voice to make sense to you?
I remember I had a teacher in university. It was my last year, yes, and she taught us about our brain. I mean, the rational and the emotional part. And I remember I was completely mind blown. I didn't know. I didn't think of it that way. Nobody told me, and a lot of things made sense when I learned that simple idea.
Sure. Yeah, we have three brains: base brain, amygdala, middle brain, and cortex, the self, the higher brain. And different parts of our mind, which is different than the brain, use those parts of the brain. And so the lizard brain is base brain and amygdala, limbic system. Limbic system is the midbrain.
Next time we're doing a podcast about neuroscience to dig deeper in the subject.
Very good.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Indeed. I just want to close the circle somehow, because you started with potential, and I think it's a really nice but strong word. And talking from experience, I know that when you have this mindset shift and you realize that you are on this journey to achieve your full potential, let's say.
Yes.
It's both scary and exciting, because you don't know if you're on the right path, if you're doing the right thing, if you are who you should be. There are so many questions and so many unknown factors, and I think this is one of the reasons that people give up on this journey to potential and better stick to the safe zone. Do you have any advices for following this journey to your full potential without, taking into account the anxiety that might appear, the fears that you have, the uncertainty that is at every step?
I think that we need to prepare ourselves for all the obstacles that are going to show themselves, and not think or try to have an easy life kind of thing. It's not possible. There are going to be challenges, going to be obstacles in the way of gaining this human potential, this, living my potential, increasing my capacity. There's going to be obstacles, and get ready to embrace them and handle them. Otherwise, they're very surprising, like any change. If you're not counting on change, counting on obstacles, counting on these things, when they happen, you're shocked. Why is this happening to me? And what you find out is, it's not happening to me, it's happening for me. Things happen for me.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
And you can either look at life as a paranoid would look at it. A paranoid is, everybody's out to get me. A reverse paranoid is, everybody's out to help me. And the more you're on the latter, the more people are out to help you. And if you're, and again, those are two fighting within you. It's not outside you, it's within you. The fight, the wolves. One wolf is saying, they're out to get you, look out. The other wolf is saying, these people want to help you out. They're here to help you. And I think Einstein said, you can look at everything in life as a miracle or not.
It's just a matter of how you look at it.
Perspective.
Perspective.
And I gave a short talk today, and it was about miracles. And they all connected with individual meditation and group people meditating in a group, and how they can affect the environment. And so there are a lot of miracles to be had in this lifetime. I've seen many.
Great. So then, final question: what's the best way to live with this uncertainty of the future? How to cope with the unknown, let's say.
Take it as it comes and be ready to adjust to whatever hand that you're given. It's like cards. It's sort of like, I got this hand, I can play it with grace and dignity, or I can get upset. Getting upset moves us away from creativity instead of towards it. Creativity is at the depth of our consciousness. And so in order to be creative, relax. It's counterintuitive. And I'm still learning to do it myself. Something's going wrong, I'm going to relax. I'm just going to relax and things will work out. Today the car wouldn't start. And first thought was, yeah, we're not going to make it. This car's not starting. And then I thought, well, wait a minute. Relax towards grace. Relaxed. Next try, it started.
Great. That's a good mantra to have.
Yeah. Relax towards grace. It's inside, not outside. Great. Yeah.
Perfect. We'll keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jim, a lot for
Thank you very
joining us
much.
It was
today.
fun.
Thank you, Anna. I know that you're here in Romania to give a speech on leadership of the future. So I hope today we just showed people a brief idea of your own personal view on leadership, and that people will actually have the chance to see you on stage.
Looking forward to it. Thank you,
very
ladies.
much.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.